start off this venture, I think we thought about it for quite a while, and we said no, or not the right time for it. And then we all had kids, and then we all, and then one fine day you were like, are you still up for it? And I was like, yes. Like, us first generations don't fit in anywhere. We don't fit in with the mums. We don't fit in with the grannies. We definitely not there. And then there are my friends are sort of in all different phases of life. Some are getting married, some are having kids, some are buying houses. And actually, I was probably the first person to get married quite early on. And when I did, I felt really out of place because you don't have the time. I think I was a bit of a social bee, like
you were.
I wasn't in the sense, like, I think at some point I realized that I like to be around people, I like to chat, but also had my own time where I needed my own space as well. So at that time I thought, oh, I'm really social, I have loads of friends. And then became a mum and got married and all of those things, and suddenly I started stepping back. Massive changes. And it was just at that right time you said, should we do this? And I thought, wow, like it just
meant to be.
Wow, people really need. It's hard to say whether the kids, because you hadn't had kids at that time, so you didn't quite relate to that part.
Absolutely.
It was more about, like, look, people are getting married, and you know. Life is changing for them, or I saw it because I saw it in me, but not quite. And then I started seeing it in you, how things are. I just find that I think mostly it's about losing a certain type of identity.
Such an identity crisis. I think I agree with you. I think becoming a mom, not even becoming a mom, getting married. We already have an identity crisis because we're half Indian, half Scottish or English, and then you get married to someone who's equally confused, if I understand, and then you have a responsibility of being a wife, a daughter-in-law, and then you're barely getting used to it. I don't think we waited like 2 years before we had the baby. Still not like a whole wave of another responsibility.
Should we go back and say what a name is? I'm Anne, I'm a GP, I'm also a wife, a mommy, and a daughter, and a daughter-in-law, and lots of different titles, and
a friend.
That's very hard. I think every other responsibility you take it on your sleeve and you say, okay, this is my responsibility or duty to do. So you work hard on that. But friend is always something that probably goes on the wayside. I've learned over time.
I think every other kind of responsibility, I suppose, like, you'd have to give quite a lot. Friendships shouldn't be about it should be about just like, even if you don't like see each other for like a good few years or like a few months.
Amen to long distance friends.
Exactly.
That's what we need.
That's what 2000.
That's what we're doing.
I'll tell you how I met you. First, time I saw you was in 2009. It was something like JY. It was definitely JY, but it was more of a conference over up in Wales. So I remember seeing these 3 girls, all really thin, all beautiful, and they all stuck together. All stuck together. I was like, I couldn't quite figure out, they're not triplets. Definitely could be. And they had these beautiful accents, and I said, what is going on? And then realized that this is a big clique. We realized that we were both coming to Scotland, me from England and you from Northern Ireland, and we were going to. You were up in Aberdeen, I was in Glasgow, but we kept chatting and
kind of
after that
every now and then.
Is she just gonna get?
I just hang about and.
Let's start with that.
Let's.
So Archana, but like I've got different names, I suppose, like Archana, different versions, I suppose. Archana, Ashana, and Archana, and Achu, Archie. In terms of profession, I'm a social worker, and I think we spoke a little bit about like how I kind of met you. We kind of stayed connected like for the past far too many years. So way too. Way too long.
You've passed the decade mark.
Yeah,
I think so.
more
I think in terms of yourself, I think we met in uni. Is that right?
Yes.
Dundee.
Yeah, my gosh.
Oh, you guys went to the same uni?
Yes, we did. Well, you were Abertune. No,
No, I went to St Andrews for my first 3 years
Okay.
of uni.
Yeah.
And then St Andrews was like a BSc
Yeah.
course of medicine, and then you moved to a different uni.
Yeah.
So I went to Dundee because it was closest to home, to be honest
Okay.
with you. And that's the only way I could not stay at home, but stay away from home.
Yeah, I understand,
My
yeah.
close friends. Now, one of my best friends told me, "Oh, there's a Chechi here. That's what that's
Chechi.
That's
And was it Chechi?
the first thing he told me. Like, do not call me Chechi. That's the first thing he told me.
No, yeah.
Like, please, yeah, I remember. Really? Please don't call me Chechi. Like, you don't need to call me that. You were very nice about it. And I was like, okay, because you don't know when you're meeting another one. You don't know what wavelength it is. You
Absolutely.
were kind enough to show us
Lovely.
through Dundee,
Yeah.
which is really
Did I?
Yeah.
Aberdeen, you were Dundee.
No, I was Dundee. I was
Dundee.
working in Aberdeen.
Yeah.
I was in Aberdeen after my Dundee. So I didn't even realise this.
Where?
ARI.
Oh my goodness. When?
Oh gosh, 2016 to 2018.
I was there.
Really? No,
We didn't stay connected. We clearly didn't stay connected.
Well, that's interesting because you obviously met and obviously had a certain bond or
Yeah.
whatever,
Yeah.
but then never had times or periods
Yeah.
where you didn't speak to each other
I
and
think-
then reconnected.
Yeah.
But my name is Amanda. Amanda or Amala. Pamela. Then the P. Yeah, Pamela. Then the P is how I describe myself. Because then people of a different who come from a different place than I do, and then they can say my name.
Yeah, that's a good way to do
I
it.
know.
Well, interesting. We were going to talk about identities. Then you were going to you're touching on from school. This is how I said. That's interesting because there is certain ways that we describe the way we say our names.
Yes.
And would you say that obviously that's only when you came here, right? So where were you before?
I'm a nomad that was in Kerala for like a few years, but I grew up in Karnataka.
Oh,
I know, not in a city, not Bangalore or anything, but in a wee village where Papa had a farm and we loved it. Yeah, such a different, such a rowdy life before we moved to UK. I was brought up with my grandmother.
okay.
Clearly a common story among a lot of us.
Yes.
And my father was there. My mum was in Saudi Arabia that way.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And then we moved here. That's when we started living as a family.
So you didn't like Karnataka? Out of
I think my grandfather had land there, so my dad had land right next to it. And so I can read and write Kannada, but I can't speak Kannada anymore because
well, that's
it's so
a good
different.
thing. Just in case if she starts making
But I can't read and write Malayalam. Malayalam is like, oh my god.
So that's interesting. Do you know what this is called? It's called hyphenated identity.
Oh, that's a nice way of
It's
putting
nice,
it.
isn't it? Because I just found that out.
Not
recently.
confused?
Not confused.
Just hyphenated.
Hyphenated.
I like this.
So it means that where we are from two different bits. Like for me, it's so hard to say where you're from and like, oh God, which story do I start with?
Yeah.
My parents are from Kerala, but in India, it's not. Then I was born and brought up in the Gulf, in Oman, and then I moved up to England and then did my studying, and then went to uni in Scotland, and now I'm based in Scotland. And you can't actually.
You're basically Scottish now.
No, see, this is hard.
Oh,
it's hard.
It's very hard for me. I still say it's been so many years since I've come up for uni. It's really hard for me to just say I'm Scottish.
Yeah.
What do you say you
For
are?
me, I still say the whole spew, but the whole spew is said.
Actually, yeah.
Every a patient comes and says, "Oh, where's Origo? Oh gosh." I have
Please
to keep
stop.
to my time. I have 6 minutes to speak to you. 4 minutes to write. This is not
My golden hour.
It's not golden hour.
So it's hard to say where I am. I think I just say the whole spew to be honest with you. But maybe sometimes Preston is still home for me. All, even though probably never lived in Kerala, you end up saying, oh, nothing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have a connection. I mean, I don't want to be.
I think it's a bit more harder.
Yeah. I think not a connection. I find it more harder. And you're not in America. There was what LKG.
Yeah.
And then holidays maybe.
Yeah. So for me, it's only holidays.
Yeah.
So it's hard for me. So for me, I think it's that grandma connection that you're talking about. For me, it was there for that. I'd go back because
Yeah.
she is home.
Yeah.
She's
It's a kind of
home.
feeling, isn't it? It's more than like the kind of geographically where you work, and it's actually that feeling with even whether it's with
Yeah.
a person or with
Yeah.
a certain family or
Yeah.
do you know? I think I stayed in Kerala till I came over to UK. So you're finding things about each other.
Are you actually just finding out now?
Are we siblings?
Maybe. Daddy.
Really? Tell me, so you guys chatted all the time?
Like so we
Until now, you've not found out.
no, exactly.
But we're not.
We're talking more about like our motherhood.
Motherhood,
I mean that
to be honest with you,
takes up
that's
a lot
it.
of her time.
I don't believe it.
Yeah, so I grew up in Kerala, like and obviously I moved over here, like I was born in Saudi Arabia, so I've got that kind of connection as well. Like,
Yeah.
I grew up with my amateur and then like we kind of grew up.
Oh, we actually all have that in common.
Yeah, we've got that in common. I think in terms of calling Kerala home, I think what it was to me at the time, especially to me, that makes me feel like
Yeah.
home, but Kerala is not home.
Yeah.
It's not. It doesn't give out the same feeling, regardless of who's alive and who. You
Yeah.
know, like whoever is
Yeah.
it's in Kerala. It's not the same. It's then obviously you grown up, and people grow up, people change. So I think that feeling is a bit different now.
Yeah.
And obviously we grew up in Belfast, same as you. Like we were in Belfast and Uniland, but thinking what it is. So essentially, I was born in Saudi Arabia. Childhood was spent in Kerala.
Where is Saudi Arabia?
We're not going there. We're not going there. And then moved over to Scotland when I was 18, and I've been here for like probably the same time as yours. It was really interesting. Like last week when we were talking, or 2 weeks ago when we were talking, like you've got really like strong Scottish accent. Me and Anne, we've picked up a lot of accent as well. Obviously we've been here like the longest, I suppose.
I think people from Preston says, "Oh, leave your Scottish accent."
Exactly. That's exactly the same. Like when I kind of go back home as well, but not when you talk to people here, they kind of pick up the accent that's different from theirs. So there's no place we can actually kind of belong to.
Yeah.
So even though like I call like in Belfast home because my mum and dad and my in-laws and all are there. Like there's no place that's actually like. But it's that's my hometown kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
I think the way mommy and daddy relates to home or not,
Exactly.
we can't relate to that.
Yeah. So we
That's
can't
true.
ever say Scottish. We can. I mean, the minute like your parents leave Preston or like my folks leave Belfast, is that going to be home?
Yeah.
I mean, it was where we grew up.
That's true. That's true as
That's
well.
where we grew up. But then, like, once you have friends and family, all the connections that you'd had,
It's not the same.
That made it home.
I agree. Preston's not the same what
Excuse
it used to be.
Exactly.
My parents have moved out of Scotland, so now I don't know where my home is.
Yeah. It's interesting, isn't it?
So it's
And that's with you living with a husband and a child,
exactly.
and in your own house.
I think-
But it's so weird how not having a base all the time means that you wonder where home is.
Do you know what that is about? Malayalis is an essential thing. Like, a lot of average Malayalis, like one of the most important things that we grew up with is Amma Veeda. Like Amma Veedil പോകുന്നത് അമ്മയുടെ വീട്ടിൽ പോകുന്നത് during vacation. That was a big thing that we grew up with. And not having an Amma Veeda for our kids.
hits hard!
Do you know what I mean? Like, because where's your home? Like, where do I say, like, I'm going to my home? Because growing up, I've always heard my mom say, like, ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ വീട്ടിൽ പോവാ. Do you know what I mean? Like, vacation വരുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ വീട്ടിൽ പോവാ. അവർക്ക് ഇപ്പോഴും ഇപ്പം മമ്മി in her 60s, she still says ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ വീട്ടിൽ പോയാൽ എനിക്ക് ആൾക്കാരുണ്ട് അങ്ങനെ ഉണ്ട് എന്നൊക്കെ. So if your parents move out and if they like leave whatever the base that they were at, നമ്മളുടെ അമ്മ വീട് or നമ്മളുടെ പിള്ളേരുടെ അമ്മ വീട് എവിടെയാ, like, do you know, like, do you know, which is really like
we can't promise them Amma Veda, but we can promise them for a certain extent, like എൻ്റെ വീട്. നമുക്ക് അത് തന്നെ ഒരു confusion when we were growing up, or like നമ്മൾ വളർന്ന സമയത്ത് I think our parents were so, my parents were so like not aggressive, but like our whole community മുഴുവനും were so focused on keeping that Malayali
Malayali.
and so it was almost frowned upon if you tried to integrate. Is that the right word? Me and my sister were the first Indians in our school. So there was a clique that we were all grew up together. But then in your ear, then I'd have, it was almost frowned upon that you were losing your accent. And you have other friends. This is toxic stuff as well to a certain extent. As I'm growing up, we're realizing that that's like segregation is not really the way forward. But it's saying that it just shows that at least we can try our best to give our children the freedom.
Yes.
Freedom. this went really deep, isn't it? To freedom to express himself.
Yeah.
Baby D will say this. He was born here.
Yeah.
He was born into the same home. Unless we move to like Australia or somewhere else.
Yeah.
But even then, he'll think he's Scottish.
probably good thinking he's Scottish.
And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with it. Yes, he has a lineage of Indian thing, and I would love it if he can say if he knows my language.
Yeah. So I know the identity part of it is complicated, and then we had all this integration to do, trying to associate yourself, and then we had all these Malayali associations and all the dances and the all the other stuff that came around with it. I think we had a sense of belonging.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, I certainly did.
It was actually really fun.
It was, wasn't it?
I mean, it did come with its toxic stuff as well, as you were saying.
Yeah.
But do you think that it was good for you having that as an association and things like that for you to go to? And
I think it helps me realize how important how other people view is or not important it is.
Good.
As I grew up, I was like, actually, boundaries is what I need.
Yeah.
They can think whatever they want,
Good.
but I don't have to think that way,
Mm-hmm.
and that's okay.
Yeah.
And it's hard for an Indian woman to think that because we're so used to
So
accepting.
when did
other
that come? When did that come?
Uni. Moved away properly from home, I suppose. I was like, I don't have the same political views as you guys.
Yeah.
I'm okay with that.
Do you think obviously it's a bit of a small place?
It is small,
So community the Malayali community would be significantly in a smaller compared to Belfast or Preston.
Yeah.
Would that do you think that kind of played a part in people being a bit more
Maybe.
I think that's just us being Malayalis.
I suspect it was driven by fear. They're so used to having cliques as well, and they're so used to having control. These are words that I'm recognizing.
Yeah.
That's why now, as I grow, giving birth to a child was my breaking point. I was like, okay, I can't keep going being a people pleaser.
Yes.
This is not affordable for my mental health.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, no matter who it is, I have to be the boss of my own self.
Yeah.
Like I can't just be people pleasing and then surviving. That means I'm not just compromising my own mental health, but I'm putting my own child at risk of having to live under someone else's rules.
Yes.
My husband is much calmer than I am, but I don't know if he's just avoiding it. Because that's all men. The majority of the men are in the world. They're avoiding it.
There's something about how all these men seem to be very chilled. They're not taking.
Or we've just
Or
chosen.
we
That's a question, then. That is a question. Why is that we're different? Why is that they stay calm?
So we've all chosen our own husbands?
Yeah.
Yes.
Unfortunately,
No return policy.
Yeah, we've chosen. Yeah.
So when did you go from being a lone bee and recognizing that God made one for another person, and how do we then find that person? How it went, where did you change anything at that point? Did you as a person change before marriage?
Before marriage, I think with I don't think I changed. The only thing, the bigger fight that I had before marriage was about not getting married. When people wanted me to get married, and that was a big fight. Up until the relationship bit, you were kind of still dancing about and having fun and not a lot of things. You just go with the flow till you meet your partner, and then once you get in a relationship, that you do all that, but just kind of in that relationship because everything else is in the background, but your main focus shifts a little bit. So your relationship with the person, you're going with the flow with that. And then that sort of age before you get married, it's even though it's supposed to be a really good time, it's also a really tricky time as well. Telling the parents the first time, before you get to the stage where you're kind of about to be married and stuff. Obviously, the families getting to know each other. I'd never I heard about that being the hardest part. Not in that I'm thinking obviously in-laws and stuff. It's trickier. We've all seen that growing up. But shit,
That's
they get
drilled into us.
Exactly, but they
It's
do
meant to be
get
hard.
along, and whenever they meet up, they do get along, and it's all you just see the good sides of it. But there's other side of it, especially when you're part of that kind of equation, just your family getting used to your partner's family, and them getting used to you, you getting used to them.
And it's so different. You get to see them how they are within their family.
Exactly.
Do you know what I mean?
You said not much changed once you got into a relationship.
Yeah.
So I suppose the question then comes: did things change after you got married? Then?
Yeah, definitely. Even though you know someone for in a few years, once you get married, living with someone else. I didn't live with his family or anything, but even then, you've got a family that you have to be conscious of. That was a huge change. And living with a boy, I've never really lived with a boy. We talked to them when men are so calm and kind of composed, and they don't kind of go like that sort of thing. Whereas I'm like that, and then sometimes I wonder what is that? What is it about us that's kind of making us like that?
The hormones.
Anxious.
Up and down, up and down.
It's so unfair.
It probably is the hormones, but I remember once we were kind of driving back from somewhere, we were away last year somewhere, right? And then a guy was cleaning up the motorway, and I just casually made a comment saying that guy just left that bag there, and that just not bothered me. I just kind of commented on it, and the was like, why is your brain picking that up? That simplifies. That is your answer to everything. Why is your brain picking guy? Yes, it's a big thing, but if your brain is used to picking a lot of things like that up, you're bound to be
To be honest,
if you go back to the cave days, the men are hunters and the gatherers, and we're the ones who kind of looking out for is that going to be a threat, a risk? We've got to look after child. The child doesn't have much of a they
So
rely on
true.
it. So I suppose
I've also heard the theory about how we pick up emotions as well. I think we're growing up as we've done whatever environment we have. Usually we do grow up to be anxious attachers or people pleasers, or whatever traumatic events that's happened. We monitor everyone's emotions, and we're trying to hypertune. What is that saying? And it comes back to the label of, are you an empath or not? I think this I've looked into a lot because I think something I want to find out, and that helps me relate a lot to my patients, which is great. But then that boundary, if that's not, I'll just drain all my energy. I'm just trying to find out, are you upset with me?
So this is the difference between empathy and sympathy. So sympathetic, where I am sorry that this is happening to you, and you draw a line there.
Yes.
And empathetic, where you walk in their shoe.
Such a draining thing.
Drains, and you
I
have to.
What you said there kind of is quite interesting about but I think if I could take it back to when I think you kind of touched upon it when you were younger kind of thing, and attachment. Quite a lot of what we do in our kind of line of work, we talk about how were your early days. So if you as a child had to study other people as an infant, as a child, if you had to read other people's emotions, or if you feel I'm going to have to do this and that to receive attention, or please, if that was your basic need, or if that was your kind of internal working model, unfortunately that's your internal working model now. So I don't think it's a lot more complicated than people pleasing. So it's all connected, but it's taken back to
and abandonment.
Exactly, because you mentioned your mum was working away.
So my mum was working in Saudi Arabia at the time. She left me with my grandmother when I was 30 days old. So as a baby, I lost my primary care just like that.
Interesting. So until a certain period in my life, I thought my grandma was my mom.
You genuinely believe that?
I genuinely believe that. With a story on where there's a really close mom's youngest sister. She's really young at home. She was going basically and these two and there's me, and they go, Mommy! The biggest connection that I have is to her and my grandma at that time. And at some point, I then got plucked from that.
To your mom.
To your mom. And then you're like, so actually you're my mom?
So if you pause that thought a second, and if you can actually picture this is where we're talking about the empathy, and think about that child, to be not really sure about who the mum is. So obviously now that you're a mum, you know how children, how dependent, how sometimes they're only going mummy. So that's all what we are programmed.
I think maybe I did call her Ammati, but in Talele you have what is a maternal person is
Yeah.
Amma, right?
Yeah.
So Ammachi എന്ന് വിളിച്ചെങ്കിലും
Yeah.
Ammachi is just, for Christianities, that's just Amma.
Yeah, അമ്മച്ചി പണ്ടത്തേക്ക് അമ്മച്ചി എന്നാണ് വിളിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത്. പക്ഷേ I think
so
that's
deep,
one of the, it is deep.
Yeah.
It's
Triggering all the like
It
postpartum
is, and I
memories.
think that is
So
where
that
like,
meant that when the hormones hit me, me and her were the worst. I feel so sorry for my dad.
Yeah.
Like കഞ്ഞി വെക്കാൻ പറയുന്നു, ഞാൻ കഞ്ഞി വെക്കത്തില്ല.
Yeah.
Not because I don't know how to. എനിക്ക് കഞ്ഞി കുടിക്കണം ആഗ്രഹമുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ
there's something about like what you're doing or what your presence is triggering me, and then that's just shutting me out.
Yeah.
So again, if you, sorry, I'm going to psychoanalyze this, but if you look at like, so imagine you as a child. A child would have millions of emotions, and say for example, if at some point a child is getting really kind of anxious or like really hungry, if you're the biological mother, you're programmed to kind of, you know, understand the cues of the child, and if you're not there, you would not be able to understand that cues. It's like a separate language that's, you know, that's only like between like you and your child kind of thing. So if you're that child, and if you kind of grow up getting used to the fact like there's so many needs that I've got but they're not getting met, and the person responsible for that is not here, when you grow up, that kind of causes a little bit of resentment or like a lot of unresolved issues, and then later on, it's just a bit of a
You go to therapy and then you find this out. That's what happened to me.
You should have just come to me.
Do you tell what you thought, because obviously there are certain things that you had felt there, but at the same time, would you say that was the same emotions that you went through?
Oh yes. I think I realized I'm not resentful right now. I'm almost sad for myself when I was a baby. I think I felt it the most when I had my son.
Okay.
I think that's when it hit me. I was like, oh my gosh, I must have wanted my mother at that point. And it's such a heartbreaking feeling. And you know, you're low, you're breastfeeding, you're not flipped. So all your support systems are gone down. So your negative thought process is like very hyperactive.
Okay.
And then you're maneuvering through your own emotions. But I don't blame her. I'm also sad that she went through it.
How exactly. So that's exactly it. Because you're complicated, complex issues of like feeling abandoned, rejected, and not having your mom there. But you love your mom. Your mom's feeling 100-200% guilty, and don't blame it.
Let's pause a minute.
Yeah.
We're moms. We've just gone through this. Can you go and leave your child with the granny and go far away and then work constantly? No means of FaceTime, no WhatsApp, no nothing.
Maybe a letter.
And that's it.
Oof, that must have been hard.
So we see our point of view, but now we can put ourselves in the shoes of them and really understand it and imagine that's just heartbreaking.
Definitely hard, but then going back to the sympathy or empathy, who do you give sympathy to, who do you give empathy to? Isn't that the question to ask? So that's where we're kind of struggling.
So I think when I coming back to this mom versus child point of view, I think going back to people pleasing. I think that's how I became a people pleaser. Growing up, I was like, oh, if I behave a certain way, I will receive that attention. I think it sounds like common sense now, but I never did. It never made sense. And I think even when I moved here, we were such good kids. Like my parents used to say, like, my mum, you know, you were not trouble at all. When you were in your 20s, you had your teenage tantrums at that point. That's probably when I set those boundaries, and I was like, I need to allow myself to be angry sometimes, because anger is not a bad emotion. It is there for a reason. It is because you feel disrespected. You feel like you're not being heard. And I think that's what I'm trying to do for my son. I was like, okay, you're being angry. Okay, I'm not going to ask you to stop crying. I can't ask you to stop the tantrums. You do what you need to do. I'm going to be right next to you. I can't let you hit me. But first time I felt so free. I was like, oh my god, this is so good.
I don't have any anger. I might have in as a teenager, but not towards you know, you had eyes and you had ears. You understood why they did it, and but even then, even as a teenager, I think why that was done. but it came out in a different way.
Yeah.
And then I still remember things changed
Mhm.
when I got dropped off for uni.
Mm.
On that day,
Mhm.
I said, hell, I'm getting out of here, kind of thing.
Mm.
And when that car turned and left,
Mhm.
and you realized that's you,
That's it. Yeah.
that's you
That's
all
you.
alone
Yeah.
and against this world.
No.
Journeys all the time, middle of the
Yeah.
nights to get to Preston Beach. I didn't realize I was homesick
Yeah.
because I thought I was getting freedom. Wow, I'm getting home and doing whatever I wanted and those kind of things. But all that disintegration with Amma then started building. These two pieces started building up from 18 when I was left alone.
Yeah.
So distance helps relationships.
Oh yes.
So once that happens, then you can build it back together.
Yeah.
And I can't, I don't call anyone as much as I call Amma. So
And that's also like conflict resolution നമ്മൾ പഠിക്കുന്നേ അപ്പോഴാ. I think quite a lot of നമ്മുടെ communities വഴക്കുണ്ടാക്കി that's it, under the carpet, sorted. We don't need to talk about it. ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് സംസാരിച്ച് നമ്മൾ വഴക്കുണ്ടാക്കത്തേ ഉള്ളൂ, മാറ്റാം. But then conflict resolution is such an important part of building a relationship. Because I think I fought with Jeff. So first time we fought, oh my gosh, I was so happy. I was like, okay, finally, this is real. This is after marriage. I was like having a proper, because we're both people pleasers. We both don't like fighting, but we need to fight. I think we need to fight instead of avoiding. I was like, okay, we need to have a chat. How it's not working for me, it's not working for you, so we need to have a chat about how we can maneuver it. Fight if we want, and that's okay.
what about the role of a wife?
Do you know, I think my role started when I was 20.
Yeah.
So like balancing the two families and blah blah blah. For me,
things
the wife
didn't really change.
Things didn't.
Once you married, it was just sort of you're married.
Before marriage, we didn't live together, so we would make time for each other. We would make the space for each other. Now that you're living together,
to be honest, it makes this really weird. I was like,
I think the thing was like you can be together with the person that you chose to be, and you're very like you've got everything is going good for you. But do you know that saying that like feeling lonely when you're with someone?
Oh, that's hard.
That is a hard part. Do you know? And obviously, like once you're married, like for women, I don't know if it's just me or for women collectively, but like we're so used to making that space, like that space and time for each other. Like before marriage, we would just kind of spend like, especially if you don't live together. And if you don't get that after, exactly, so
putting that person a priority.
Exactly. So you get married thinking this is what life is going to be like. So expectation, what you see in movies, like that's where, and then like you go to work, you come back, you're tired, you have to do like dinner, blah 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 sort of stuff. So date thing, that element of like the private, not private time. What you call it, romance maybe. Or that sort of that kind of
Stop it! I miss it.
Exactly. So I think me and Terry, like we had like 5 years after we got married. So that was a significant time because it was long. We had time with each other. We did things, but even then, like feeling lonely, like and even when you're with that person, that is.
We're so different as well, to be honest.
What did you do with that?
We fought quite a lot, but he was not able to hear what I was saying. My needs were different, his needs were different. For him, it's ticking the box that we're spending time together, we're traveling the world, we're doing the things that we wanted to do, we're doing. But for me, my language is different. I want you to spend quality time.
Love language.
Words of affirmation that that you're still important to me, or you're still that kind of stuff.
Talking about his feelings to see,
exactly
expressing.
I don't know, sometimes I feel like just shut up that feelings.
Getting water out of a rock.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I just cannot deal with the feelings. I don't want to pay attention to the man who left the rubbish bag on the motorway. I just want to switch off. I just want to enjoy the kind of moment. But unfortunately, I was young. I was naive. I was not it was not shut off. So that played a lot of that impacted quite for me, especially. I remember like when we were traveling in Asia and having the biggest fight ever, because I wasn't feeling that kind of connection. But
connection.
But then again, that takes me back to my childhood. This is where we're all kind of, because we're not making the connection. The attachment coming into play. Even though I am doing all this sort of stuff in work professionally, I am doing the analysing and helping other young people out with the things.
This is hard.
I don't want to do that with myself because I don't want to go there because that is too much of a trauma. It's uncomfortable sitting in the uncomfortable thinking in silence is way difficult than actually fighting with the person that you chose to be and taking it out on that person. And my answer at the time was, right, maybe like we're growing up and growing out of love, or that's where your brain takes it.
The negative thing.
Yeah. And
I've
that
had that
child
conversation as well. I was like, maybe this is it, as I said, and he's like, what is it? I'm happy. What's going?
Exactly.
He's like, what are you talking about? Why are you going from 0 to 100? I was like, and he's like, I'm not even thinking. I was like, what do you know? What?
That's because all of those emotions,
Yeah.
you're in your head.
Yes.
You have gone through all of it.
Yeah.
But
Like
what
from the
you
start to the end.
Yeah. You've gone through all in your head, but what you blurt out
Yeah.
is that last bit.
Yeah.
And it feels like,
Exactly, yeah.
what has
What?
this
You're not
done?
happy? What?
I was like, that's it.
So yeah, well, let's see, how
Yeah.
did you meet, or how did it
It
go?
was very different, to be honest with you. Growing up, I wanted to be a nun. I really wanted to be a nun, to be honest.
Do you still want to be a nun?
Sometimes I wonder, like, should I have been a nun?
For my time.
I was like, is this going to be?
Yeah, when you see
But Dad was absolutely against it. Absolutely against it. He just never liked the idea of people being nuns. He just never did. Then I grew out of it, to be honest with you, and then teenage happened, and I was like, okay, not teenage, my uni happened. I just sent a message on Snapchat, I think. I was like, oh, I remember meeting you. I was like, yeah, we met when we were like kids, though. When we were like in teens. But I remember thinking, Kirkcaldy's, I used to tease everyone in Kirkcaldy, and I used to tease a lot. Also, my toxic trait I've worked on. And I remember like this boy coming and talking to me, like, why are you talking to me? And in my head, I was like, I was very short sentences. I was like, I don't want you to talk to me because if someone sees from some of the girls that tweets to me,
This toxic trait. I remember going to a party and having a friend who I known for a little bit long through someone else. You know, if it's a funny character, you know, you gel quickly. And obviously it's a boy. And I was having a good time. The Facebook memories came up with a picture with this person after so long. First thing that came to mind is a conversation that happened within the family where, oh, she was having too much fun with this guy.
yeah, so that's what I was worried about.
So not within the my own
immediate family.
Yeah.
but
Oh,
obviously
that's so toxic.
it then feeds into the immediate family and you do get it. But me and Dad have a good enough relationship to say, Papa, if you believe it, that that's just silly,
Yeah.
and walk away. And he'll like, oh shit, yeah, maybe I should have.
Wow.
But share, but it was there. But what surprised me was 10 years maybe, 11 years. I remember the good time, but I remember less. But I remember the comment
So
Yeah.
about that person. And
I think I've got a little bit of different experience than you two in that sort of sense. Listening to you guys, like even though like our we had a lot of like kind of young people around like our age that like, going in Belfast. Like my family, like we were so used to like my friends നമ്മളുടെ വീട്ടിൽ കയറി അവരുടെ വീട് പോലെയായിരുന്നു കണ്ടുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത്. So when we went to Belfast, that became a thing for us as well. So our parents, like so our friends would like come over, have food, and
it became a hub.
It became a hub. So ചെറുക്കന്മാരാണെങ്കിലും പെണ്ണുങ്ങളാണെങ്കിലും it doesn't matter. It was not a thing. Like ഞങ്ങൾ one of our really good friends, like അവരുടെ വീട്ടിൽ ഞങ്ങൾ പോയി like we would sleep over, and they would come and sleep over. It was never a thing. So like listening to you guys is making me think, obviously the community, like different people, they would have different opinions and experiences about like that kind of anything in your circle, what your parents are, how the feeling that they are giving you is what's
confidence
important.
they give.
So like I guess like kind of now that we are parents and we've got our family, like that kind of give, you know, that makes me think like it's important what we're doing with gender parenting or whatever sort of thing. It's important because that feeling, you talked about that feeling being quite lasting, quite damaging. Unfortunately.
So that's when you said that, oh, I remember this as I was so worried about how other people.
So petrified to speak to him, to be honest with you. And someone did come and ask me, it's like, oh, why were you speaking to him? And I was like, oh, he's just asking me something. And I moved on.
I'm really sure then.
And I can't blame them. I was part of it, so I have to take responsibility for it.
As well.
Exactly. I have to take. I am taking responsibility.
And then you were saying like you had that.
So and then he messaged me like a few years later when I started getting to know each other. In the meantime, my parents were starting to think, oh, you need to get married. You need to start thinking about it. And they started asking, oh, do you have anyone? I was like, when? When am I going to find anyone? I was like, oh my gosh, my papa had this line. Mole, നീ ഇപ്പോൾ ഒരു ക്രിസ്ത്യാനി അല്ലാത്ത ഒരാളെ കെട്ടിയ പപ്പ സമ്മതിക്കും. പപ്പ പക്ഷെ അപ്പൊ ഉണ്ടാവുന്ന എന്റെ ഹൃദയനൊമ്പരം മറക്കരുത്.
Wow.
Who defined anyone after that? Oh my god, I was like, this is, I was like, that was actually emotional blackmail. I was like, I see what you did there. But at least because he didn't say no, I never brought anyone home or I didn't even introduce anyone. But she found her
Good
own man.
question. Do they ever change, like, does the thinking of parents change because they come here? Or here?
I think we have to bring that one.
That's what I thought.
From the first date onwards, I told my parents I'm going on a date with this guy.
Yeah, that's nice.
And both at a time of life where we were ready for serious relationship.
Yes.
It was always from the start, I think.
Yes.
First date or first meetup we went to, it was like, he told me, I think at that point I wasn't sure if I wanted to do anything.
Yeah.
He's like, okay, we're looking at a serious relationship. That was from the first time a man has to actually just step forward. It's like, I respect it. It's just like, this is what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
This is something that you've been. I knew we were going to commit. I think I knew that this was it. So it was just, I didn't want that label there. So within a year, I bet we got married.
Okay.
So that happened. We knew that was coming, I suppose. But you were saying how you thought it was quite nice that I was 25 years old. I was thinking, me and Jessica have spoken about this. Like, it would have been nice if we were together when we were younger. We could have grown up together, understood it a bit more. So I think what we can all learn is that we're going to learn from our parents, but we are going to pick and choose about how we can improve from it. Because they did that from their own parents as well. And we can work on it. I think it's a great platform that we can speak to our parents and know that we're actually just sitting next to each other. We've noticed how similar we are.
Absolutely.
And how different we are at the same time. Being a mom and the struggles and how important having alone time is to fill your cup.
Yeah.
This is something that I would say that's filled my cup a little bit.
Definitely.
It'll be nice. It'll be nice.
Yeah,
We'll be learning
that's a
together.
good adventure.
We'll be learning together.
Just getting together, just talking about
Having a laugh.
and going deep
And rising above the challenges, because we had a lot of challenges today.
Breaking a lot of cycles as we go.
Yeah.
That's why I think about it. It's so hard. Not rewarding, but it is hard. We're breaking a lot of stuff that needs to be broken. A lot of cycles that needs to be broken. I felt so passionate about this. And I was like, okay, we need this. Now I'm so confused. So like hyphenated identities and personalities, and then I think this would be so good. If I had that when I was like postpartum, I would have done it.